All systems go. Clear for liftoff.
What is going on, everybody? New intro voice. Probably haven't heard this one in a long time. The man, Tambo himself, is out. I will try and do half as good a job as he usually does, bring some energy. We got football on this Thursday. We got big prize pools. I'm with my man Hoop, as always. Cowboys, Giants, little division rival. MetLife Stadium, 45 total, 5-point spread. Cowboys favorites. How you feeling tonight, Hoop?
Yeah, our fearless leader is not with us today. He's out on the golf course for the President's Cup. But you know that means one thing. When Tambo's on our show, more words to go around. So you and I are going to get some added opportunity to do some talking and some analysis here. In terms of the game, yeah, I mean all NFL games are appealing to some point, and obviously it's exciting here starting the new week, but pretty big game for the Cowboys. I mean, they've looked like not very good to start the season, so that's definitely one thing that stands out. I think it's actually pretty solid for Showdown. So excited to break it all down here with you here today.
Yeah, I'm thinking the same thing. Always got to say hi to our people before we get into it. Sean Sullivan, what's going on? Beetlebane, B. Miller, Kenny, The Realist, Nick, Ryan Shepard, Jacob Sanders, Langley, Mad. Talk about it, Hoop. He pulled it up.
Yeah, the Dak jersey, he's got to earn his way back after last time I put it on, it didn't work out so well. I think he had like 13 fantasy points. So
you're a week early. Then he put up a 36 spot and no one on him.
I know. I was still on. I'm always on him, but I wasn't on him enough and didn't have the other right stuff to go along with it. But yeah, he did put up the big game last week. But yeah, he's got to earn his spot back in terms of me putting on the jersey. So we'll see.
That's fair. What's going on, Nickel? Hey, speaking of that little profile picture he's got right there, MMA's back after a little week off. I think every week to close out the year until they do that month, New Year, Christmas break. 14 fights, Hoop. Paris, France, so we got a crowd. Prize pools are solid, but it's one of the better DFS cards. Fingers crossed. Big Marley and I will be going live tonight, 9 Eastern, talking fights like always. Fingers crossed we don't lose any, because if we don't, it's one of the better fight cards that we have.
I like the early start too. I mean, I know you're on a different time zone than me, but East Coast, you get them fights starting at noon. I absolutely love that, so I'm very excited, and I'll be definitely digging into that tonight, tomorrow, and lock those winners in. The MMA product over at SHIPIT Nation obviously has been a big part of what we do. Very successful, headed up by you and Marley. I mean, do a phenomenal job breaking it down every week. And I always talk, I had a lot of success. I had 3 weeks in a row where I shipped the 555, and a lot of people hit me up. Well, how do you do it? What's your strategy? And I'm not bullshitting to try to promote our product. I literally look at the stuff that you and Marley do and come up with my player pool and build these teams. It's no joke. You guys do a hell of a job over there. So all credit goes to you guys.
Man, you got to take some of yourself. 3 weeks in a row, 555. One of the crazier things I've seen in the DFS streets. Another crazy thing, this is way off topic, but you see that MLB best ball DraftKings, the dude literally had 8 in the top 10, and the top 4 places he had in DraftKings MLB best ball. 100K, 25, 20, 50. He just took the whole leaderboard. It was really, really cool.
That is impressive. Absolutely impressive.
Yeah, so I thought that was pretty cool. Daniel's in here. Derek, no stop. As you can see right now, we talked a little MMA. So many sports. Best time of the year right now. NFL, of course, going on. The main sport around town. Everyone knows that. Prize pool's too big. Swing season, we don't stop. Our man D-Gen, absolutely crushing it, doing the videos. There's a huge edge this week. Check out the Showdown, all the content there. MLB still wrapping up. Then we'll have playoff content as well. We have you covered. MMA still going. College football, such a great team we have over here. NASCAR, prizes usually pretty big this season. This time of year, not as big with NFL, but still, the game over here has you covered. NBA will be back before you know it, headed by Rio and BJ. And next thing you know, NHL too. No better time, ShipItNation.com. We have weekly, monthly, 6-month, annual, per sport, just projections, any option you want. we have it for you, and everything does include the Discord, except the weekly, which is one of the biggest pieces of our content over here. Good afternoon, Casey Henry. Let's talk some football hoop. What do you say? Let's go, before we go, captains, then position by position, any broad slate overviews in terms of, how you think this game's going to go? Again, we don't care about that too much. Do they cover? Do they not? Do they go over? Do they not? We play a salary-based game. But if you have any thoughts on that can play into your script, but also just, can you leave a lot of salary today? How do you see captain ownership going down? What are your initial thoughts?
Yeah, the first thing that stands out to me is definitely people like to play Dallas Cowboys players in general, and they're going to like them a lot on a one-game slate. So I think you see a lot of probably 4-2s, maybe 5-1s in favor of Dallas. And you look at it, the price tag, the Dak Prescott coming in at 10-4, continuing to keep the quarterbacks down a little bit below the high-end running backs, high-end wide receivers. We have CD at 11-8, Neighbors at 10-8. Then there's a huge, and then Daniel Jones is up there too in terms of projections, but there's a big drop-off, almost like a 4 or 5, 6 point drop-off from those top 4 guys down to the next tier. So I think we see consolidated ownership at the captain position, and we see a lot of builds in favor of the Cowboys, whether it's 4-2, 5-1s, that sort of thing. Kickers obviously in play. Aubrey's like one of the best kickers in the NFL. 5K. I know there's some talk in the chat already about him being too cheap. Like, the kickers are always too cheap, and we're finally starting to see them on these showdown slates work their way into the optimal. Would not be surprised if we see that again today. So those are a few things that kind of stand out to me right off the bat.
Yeah, great breakdown for sure. Well, let's get right into captain and talk about it. As you can see right here, we have the Stone Up, one of the biggest pieces of content brought over from DGen. We have it for all sports. As you see NFL go under Showdown, we have it there. Also have it for the main slate. Looking at captain ownership, Dak, CD, Malik Neighbors, Danny Dimes, the 4 highest owned we have. Dak's price tag at 10-4 off of CD's 11-8. That 1.4K savings goes a decent bit. I will say there is some value down there, like especially when you go running back. If you want it, it's a 4-way backfield right now in Dallas. It looks like Rico number 1, Zeke number 2, but Deuce Vaughn's getting work. This Hunter Lepke guy is getting mixed in, 800 there, 1,200 Deuce Vaughn. So there is some value there, but outside of that, it's like Turpin's 4K is a wide receiver 4 for Dallas. Hyatt's hardly getting any snaps. He's 600. Slayton's 3,200 is wide receiver 3. Yeah, Theo Johnson, 2,400 starting tight end. He's coming with some ownership, but more of the story is I don't think there's too many great full punts on this slate, which means getting all the way up to CD. Now, maybe we are a little light. Maybe it's 16, 17%, but it's not going to be the 30% own or something like that, because when you play them, it's kind of tougher with value. And then when you do play them, it also just funnels you into similar builds. So start with captain. Obviously, I want to play CD. It's been a slower start to the year, but 160 yards, 2 touchdowns, and nuking the slates in the right range of outcomes every single week. If you play him, how do you play him? And then break down your other favorite captains.
Yeah, I think that was a very good starting point when you cover the captain position, because I really hope that number is true. I hope it is around 13, 14%, because that to me definitely looks like an opportunity to get way over the field on a guy that could, if I was going to bet on someone to absolutely nuke and break the slate tonight, it would probably be him. And we're showing the nice captain leverage too of that solid 4 number right there in green. He's the highest leveraged captain on this slate. So I hope that number is true. And I think your talking points around it hold a lot of water, because, man, it's like there's not a ton of like standout, like I want to play these cheap guys. There's a bunch of guys down there that you can play, but you're not going to be comfortable with any of those guys. So I really hope that number remains true on CD. Obviously, I love the CD to Dak connection. Talk about it all the time on these shows. Made us and the SHIPIT Nation community a shit ton of money last year, and it'll be something that I'll be looking to exploit today. So
let's say it's 20%. Let's say it's 20%, because I do think we're light for sure. I
think it's a little light. I mean, I'm hoping it's not. I mean, I really hope it ends up around this number. I'm just going to be over on CD no matter what. Like, he's going to be a huge part of a slow start to the season. Last season he was breaking every single slate. He didn't have the full training camp, had the contract issue. So, now it's week 4. There's no more excuses. I think he has a massive game tonight. So I don't care. How I play it. Like if I feel that way about someone, I don't give a shit what the ownership number is. I will find a way to just be way overweight and make it all work. So I think he is obviously, again, I hope that number's right. I hope it's 13, 14. I think it's probably higher teens in terms of like the lowest chance, probably 17, 18 when it's all said and done. But love him. And I don't care what the price is and the ownership on that. Then Dak at 10-4. Not many quarterbacks have really found their way into optimal captain this year. I mean, we did have was Aaron Rodgers in that?
Yeah.
So Rodgers was. Yeah. So Dak is certainly a guy that can get there. I mean, in all sorts of game scripts, and the main reason we were on him so often last season was where they're just willing to just not run the ball and just pass it in any sort of game script. And last week they're obviously trailing, and he put up 33 fantasy points. So he definitely has the ceiling to get there. Now you start looking around on the Cowboys side, like who else would you potentially want to play at captain? And it dries up pretty quickly. With all the running backs they're using, like you said, I mean, there's not a guy that's going to get in there and get a majority of the work. And any running back for Dallas that does find their way to optimal captain would have to have probably at least 2 touchdowns, and that still might not even be enough depending on the yardage and all that. So tough to look at any of those guys. The secondary wide receivers, very tough to potentially click there. Brandon Cooks has done literally nothing the last 2 weeks, and the targets are down. I think the next most logical guy, if you want a Dallas captain outside of Dak or CeeDee Lamb, would clearly be Ferguson, 10-5 in the captain spot, and coming off 11 targets last week. That's like big boy number, 11 targets. We're only showing, 2.5%. So like if you play him 5% captain, you're double the field. So I really like the Dallas side for that reason. Like I know I can get over on CD. Dak is just going to be a play and, probably somewhere around the field most likely. And then I can get over on Ferguson. I just feel like I don't need to mess with any other Dallas captain. Just curious to get your thoughts on the Dallas side captains, and we can move on and talk Giants.
Yeah, first thing I want to do is I want to look at ownership because, again, predicting ownership is really hard in all sports. But something you can do to add benefit to your process is if you play long enough, you have a better grasp on ownership, what people do. People don't love playing quarterbacks in the captain. I think you could flip Dak and CD, 19% there, 13% or 19 for CD, 13 Dak. Looking at Ferguson coming off the monster game last week, maybe this is like 5-6. Maybe Neighbors comes down to like the 15 range. I wanted to point that out first. Little stuff to add value to whatever product you're using is ownership. Very important. That's something I like to do right away. Looking at it, I still like CD at 20%. We like him right there. Our captain optimal. We'd have slightly negative leverage if we did go CD captain. Still nothing not crazy. Now, when I play CD, I want to be very cautious on what I do with him. You can go CD and then no Dak. Usually first person goes CD, then you go Dak in the flex because it's more likely he gets there. But maybe CD just racks up the PPR. Maybe the mid-tier goes off and you need more value. Like we said, the real cheap options aren't great. So, of course, I'm going to play some CD. How you play them, I'm fine not using Dak. Couple other ones. I don't mind Rico taking a shot on him at captain. Obviously, the first 3 weeks have been awful. Everyone's telling themselves, what's going on in the running back room? What looks to me is Zeke looks old, washed. I think they realize that. That's why they're getting Deuce Vaughn and Hunter involved.
Shocker. I mean, I'm shocked to find out that Zeke can't move all that quickly anymore.
Yeah, exactly. No one surprised. I saw him limping around or waggling around or whatever after running through these pad drills in preseason. I was like, he's in for a long year for sure. So I think taking a shot on Rico is fine. He's plus, again, touchdown props. It's really hard to put too much value into him. He's plus 175. I will say Zeke's plus 160, which is a little scarier. But we have Rico projected for about 4 more points. As you can see, a new addition to the stone. This will be on the normal stuff too. There's snap shares, targets per game, rush per game. You can see really awesome stuff. Shout out the editor. You can see Rico beats out Zeke in both of those. And the game script wise, outside of week 1, they pounded Cleveland. They've been down the past 2 weeks. So what if they do get up as 5-point favorites? They're up 2 touchdowns. Does Rico get 18, 20 touches? Can he fall in the box twice? At 3% captain ownership, that's something that I can embrace. Again, Ferguson's probably in the 5-6 range. We just saw how much he was involved last week. I'd be fine with him as a lowish owned captain. I think these mid-tier captains are so live today. Brandon Cooks at 6'8". Why can't Cooks fall in the box twice at 2% captain in the mid-tier, easier to leave salary? Devin Singletary absolutely has dominated so far this year. His snaps are good. His touches per game are good. He can catch balls out of the backfield. 8,200. Why not him? Wendell Robinson. So to be honest, today I'm spreading captain ownership out more. I'm probably going to be under on Dak. Probably going to be, I don't know, maybe I'm even a little under on CD, and I mix in these secondary pieces, the Ricos, the Cooks, the Fergusons, the Wendell Robinsons of the world, and then Singletaries, and then I just hope one of these low-owned captains get there. If they are on the optimal, it's a lot easier to ship. So any final thoughts on some of these secondary pieces? And if so, which guys would you include? Which guys wouldn't you include?
Yeah. So, one other name that got brought up a couple times, Brandon Aubrey. I mean, clearly one of the top kickers, in the NFL. Deep bombs are in the realm of possibility. He honestly is someone I'd potentially look at because I do think he can get 20 fantasy points. And if he gets 20 and then, Dak, CD, Neighbors, Daniel Jones, they all kind of do their thing. Like, and get somewhere between 18 and 20. Don't have the monster performance where you would need them up top. Like,
what game script are you telling yourself in that? What do you think?
Well, yeah, I mean, you're telling yourself a game script where the final score is like 24 to like 18 or something like that. So probably goes a little bit under. You'd obviously have to avoid, Malik Neighbors getting 2 touchdowns. You'd have to avoid Singletary getting 2 touchdowns, or Daniel Jones running in 1 and passing for 1 and 250 yards. So, it's a game script where everyone just does, on the fantasy perspective, not necessarily the score of the game. Like, everyone just does a little bit, but no one has the monster performance, because as soon as one of those guys goes off, then Aubrey would just go to the flex. But I think it's viable tonight just because, they're at the end of that, and with kickers, it's very situational. Like, do they get the ball with a minute left and they get it to the 37-yard line? He kicks a 53-yarder at the end of the half. Like, very situational type stuff. I want in this scenario, I want a kicker where the team's willing to just give him the deep bombs, and they're clearly willing to do that, and he can clearly make them. Again, I don't know if I'll get there. It'll all be updated on the site in terms of the captains that I'm playing. It will just depend if I need it, when I'm building my teams to get adequate exposure to the other guys I'm looking at. So I'm not opposed to it. I think, there is a scenario where he could be the captain. I will be, just after thinking through this, I think I'm going to be more consolidated at captain tonight. I just don't know if I'm going to get to the Cooks and the Devin Singletaries of the world. And I might not even play Daniel Jones, because the problem I have with Daniel Jones right now is he's so dependent on Neighbors. So if Daniel Jones has a big game, I feel like it has to go through Neighbors. And then Neighbors is going to be the captain that you need.
He has the rushing out for 1 touchdown, though. That's the thing with him.
Yes, he does have the rushing. And so, I mean, if you're going with Daniel Jones, I feel like he basically would need a rushing touchdown to be the optimal captain. Again, I'm not saying I'm totally off him yet. Figure it out when I build my teams. But right now, his success is 100% tied to Malik Neighbors. Volume wide receivers score so much better than quarterbacks. On DraftKings, just have a massive advantage. So when I go to build, like, I could potentially end up very consolidated at the captain position, because I just don't think I'm going to get to many of these secondary guys. I like CD, I like Dak, Ferguson, Neighbors, and then like Daniel Jones could be on the outside looking in, maybe a little bit of Aubrey, but I just don't think I'm messing with the rest of these guys, to be honest with you, at the captain position.
Yeah.
The one nice thing, just to tie this up, and then you can add on. The one nice thing though, if you're going outside of a lot of those guys, they're all super low owned. Like you play a little bit of them, you're probably over the field.
Yeah, then that's the stuff, like, because I can paint a picture in my head that Cooks falls in twice, Ferguson falls in twice, Wendell's been, because I can tell myself, and I don't love the cheap value, is the reason I'm including. But that'll probably force me to get underweight on the more popular ones. Now, two things before we wrap up captain and go position by position that stood out. So Dak, we have him at 23%. I mean, the Stone's just such the nuts. You have the FanDuel stuff, the DK ownership,
Beautiful.
optimals, just so good. But right here, so we thought, I said flip Dak, so he's going to be in CD captain ownership. So 13 and 19. We have Dak, though, at 23% captain optimal. So this really likes Dak. We're hot on him. It still likes Dak, which is one thing that was interesting. Same thing can be said about Neighbors. We have him at 23%. I think that could be like 16%, 15%. We have him captain optimal at 24%. So based on our metrics here and what I think ownership could do, it really does like Dak and Neighbors in the captain. Two guys that you really liked yourself as well. So thought that was an interesting talking point.
Yeah, I'm gonna get us what do we call it, the dry run here along the way too, and I'll talk through it at some point. Just pulling it all up right now, so we'll have that as a talking point just to see. I mean, just to go in there, run it, and see, because you might be right. It might be more difficult or look less appealing to get some of these expensive captains with nothing standing out as super obvious on the cheap end of things. Yeah,
I will say, if people punt, I think it's going to be one of those Hunter Lepke or Deuce Vaughn's, the third and fourth running back, that are getting mixed in a little bit.
That sounds
for 12. It sounds real gross. I mean, Deuce Vaughn has been. Mike McCarthy's just such a donkey. You never know with that guy. But Deuce Vaughn has been getting decent amount of looks. Lepke's getting mixed in, but yeah, it's gross. No, and that's why I mix in some of these mid-tier guys as captain, so I don't really have to worry about it too much. Just quick, let's wrap up quarterbacks, captain and flex hoop. My initial run right now, I'm pretty close to the field. I'm overweight in the flex, and I'm pretty close in the captain spots. I think it's a day that I will be having a lot of quarterbacks, a lot of 2 quarterback lineups. Almost all my lineups, I assume, will probably have 1 quarterback today. I like the Dimes upside. He could be down 14 points in the first quarter, which, to be honest, you want for either of these quarterbacks, really. But they have Dimes has the rushing outs. Dak, so many weapons, 5-point favorites, applied for a lot of points. Feels tough to see both of them not getting there. But what are you doing at quarterback, flex, and captain?
Yeah, certainly. I mean, I kind of talked about it. Love Dak, captain. Daniel Jones, I don't think I absolutely have to play him in the captain. Like, if things don't work out when I build my teams and I don't have a lot of Daniel Jones captain, or I don't have any Daniel Jones captain, I think I'd be fine with that tonight. But in the flex, I mean, this is, once you get into the flex, man, you're looking for floor fantasy points. I mean, and these quarterbacks have a very, very high floor. There's a lot of uncertainty. There's a lot of cheap-ish type plays. You talked about some of these running backs, backup running backs. It's just, man, low floor stuff. And, I definitely want as much exposure as possible to both of them in the flex. A lot of Dak in the captain, then Daniel Jones. Like I said, I'm on the fence with what I'll do with him in the captain. But I do have this dry run that I just went through. So I'll break that down very quickly. So it's kind of what we expected. One surprise, I'd say. So we got, Neighbors is showing up at like 43%. We have a very aggressive number on him, and I like that because, man, like the wide receiver, he's been going off, and like the wide receiver position has a very big advantage. Their pass catchers have a big advantage. So it's him at 40, Dak at 28, Daniel Jones at 7, CeeDee Lamb at 7. Couple sprinkles of guys, but the one that definitely stood out is Wan'Dale Robinson is showing up in 11% of captain, or 11% of lineups as the captain, which is pretty interesting for sure. So that's the only thing that kind of surprised me. I just want to check flex to see tons of Wan'Dale Robinson. And then, we're not getting any of those random $200 guys at a high percentage. So, kind of what we expected. With the surprise of Wan'Dale Robinson in there.
Yeah, and when you think about it, it makes sense because, I mean, Wan'Dale's role has been great this year. Neighbors, as you see, the 12 targets, 7.7 for Robinson, though, only $4,800, operating as the 2 in 2 receiver sets. Like everything checks out for Wan'Dale, so I like it, and that's a good shout there. Let's get into this really gross, interesting running back room hoop that something tells me probably wins someone a lot of cheese today, and that's probably a good thing because if you're telling me one of these running backs you're on the winner, while in the flex we have 24%, 10, 12. Deuce Vaughn will get some as well. You can find that going NFL Showdown projections right there, or just in the Shiptimizer. But Deuce Vaughn will also get some, so we have to talk about him. 26% Singletary, 16 Tracy, about 2% Gray. But then you look, our new addition right here, Cowboys, rush defense, F. Fs aren't very good from what I remember back in the day in grade school hoop.
No.
C plus ain't very good either down here. So, yeah, talk about this really interesting running back room.
Yeah, it's tough because these guys are going to show up in teams just because of the lack of standout value. Like I said, we have a lot of, I'd say a good amount of value plays, but none of them are like slam dunk type plays. So first thing is with the Dallas situation, because there's, 4 guys that are projected essentially with legitimate projections. I'd say at least 2 or 3 fantasy points. A lot of times if you see a guy projected at 0.8 or 1, you can just get rid of them X amount. All these Dallas running backs have like a respectable projection in terms of showdown slates. The big question for me is, do you want to play any of these guys together? And I'm probably creating a rule where I'm just it's only going to be 1 per lineup, because I'm both, and same with Singletary and Tracy Jr., because got running quarterbacks that are willing to run. Dak doesn't run a ton anymore, but he's willing to run, and in the inside the 5-yard line, there's a chance he runs one in. So I don't want to play multiple Dallas running backs, and I don't want to play multiple Giants running backs on the same team. So I will probably create that rule, but this is really for me going to be a scenario where I just kind of take what I get. Like, I just don't love any of these guys. I mean, Singletary is fine, but like 8.2K, where Jones will take off. Neighbors has been going bonkers. Wan'Dale's looking pretty solid as a flex play. Like, I just don't know how much of Singletary I will have. And he did have a good game last time out, the 19 fantasy points, 15. He, to me, is kind of like more of like a floor type play, like good in the flex, but I just don't know how much I'm going to get to him. The Dallas stuff, I guess like Rico's fine, but man, it's like you really need a floor slate. Like, I just don't see him having like a big game. So I don't know. I'm going to have some of these guys. None of them are super exciting. Like, obviously you feel best about Singletary, but he's the most expensive by a lot. And if you force in a lot of Singletary, you're probably taking away CeeDee Lamb shares. You're probably taking away Dak shares and, Malik Neighbors shares. So I'll probably have all these guys in my pool, but I'm not forcing any of them in my lineups today.
Yeah, it's really tough. There's no doubt about that. My favorite definitely is Rico at 6'4", 5-point favorites. Again, the game scripts have been really weird for them so far. They jump out 7-14 early. I think they do rely on the running game still from everything. It seems like Rico's 1A out of that committee. I know I'm not going to be making a rule max one, because I'm probably max one Rico Zeke, even though both touchdown props are solid. The pricing feels weird. But if 5 is enough from Deuce Vaughn at 1.2K, or 4 is enough from Hunter down there, and Rico still gets 2 in the box, like that's just them catching 2-3 passes, I don't want to group myself out quite. So I'm not going to do it there. Giants side, it'd make more sense. Is Tracy really going to be like 16% owned? Like,
that's what multiple sites are showing. So I mean, I think there's a chance, but man, if that's a true number,
that's got to be the worst of the running back plays.
I'm fine being like way under on that. So it's probably, that is probably a little aggressive, to be honest with you.
Yeah,
probably more like 12ish or something.
And that's the thing why I talk about that, because just say that's 5%. Well, that's a whole different ball game. 5%. When you get to the barbell ends, like the 2% versus 8%, is completely different when you're talking showdown format. And you got Theo Johnson at 24. You have Slayton at 32. You have defense a little higher. I don't know. That's a number I want to be looking at pretty closely, because that's 4%. He got 2 targets last game, 3 week 1. Like maybe 6, 7's enough as a pivot there. If he's already going to be 15% owned, that's not really something I want as a backup running back. So I'm going to try and get dialed in more on the ownerships on Nats, the Lepke and Deuce Vaughns. I would probably only make a rule max one of those two together. Do I love them, though? No. And I think that's why I'm kind of playing a lot of these mid-tier captains more so this game than I have the Cooks, the Wandales, the Singletaries, the World, the Ricos. So I don't have to mess with these full punts. So Rico is by far my favorite. I'm hoping it's a Rico game. Singletary I like. I don't know. Do you have a strong lean? You can definitely say you don't have a strong lean. Singletary in the flex versus captain. Like, do you think when he gets there, he just completely gets there, or it's Singletary so he just mids every time and you prefer more captain?
Yeah, I just view him as more like a mid type play, like a high floor type play. He's going to get a lot of work, but can he break the slate? Like, no. So I mean, he could, but I personally don't think it's coming tonight. So yeah, it's kind of my take on him, and the price I don't love at 8,200. I mean, obviously price isn't a huge factor on showdown slates, but like to me, like the more Singletary I get or force in, it's the less CeeDee Lamb I'm getting. It's the less Dak I'm getting. It's less Neighbors. It's less Daniel Jones. And I just feel so much better about all those other guys, obviously, than him. And he's showing up like 50. What do we have the ownership at here? Yeah, it's going to be higher than that, I think. For Singletary, we have 26-ish. I think it probably comes in like even higher than that. So
35.
Yeah, I just view him as more of a floor type play. If I get to him, I get to him. If I'm underweight, I'd be fine with it on the slate.
Yeah, Rico is by far my favorite, but it's not even close. The most interesting, and probably will be all year, the most interesting running back room dynamic on the slate. Because why can you ever play four running backs? Like, four running backs are going to get ownership on the same team. That's almost never the case. And then, I mean, yeah, I'm not going to be playing Eric Gray, but he might get a snap or two. So, yeah, that's the running back room. Again, for me, it's no Rico and Zeke together. No, probably no Lepke, Deuce Vaughn together, but I would be fine playing a Rico or Zeke with one of those two down there. Rico's by far my favorite. Singletary feels a little expensive, but the work has been great this year. If they do lead most of the game, you can catch some passes. I'm in on Singletary, both flex and captain ownership. And the Tracy is the one I'm really going to be thinking more for ownership because, like Kenny said, that price feels so bad. Theo is much better price. It feels like in my head, everyone's going to say that because I agree. Who likes a backup running back on the field 25% of snaps versus a tight end that's on there 82%? But if he's 13, I don't love it. 5, I'd be in to get different.
Here's my take, and I don't even know if it's like a hot take or anything. All right, I'll just say it because I feel it. No running back is going to be on the optimal tonight.
There you go. And there's a lot of running backs.
Is that a hot take or no?
Yeah, I'd say so because maybe hot might not. That's a mediocre. That's a mild take.
Mild. All right, I'll take mild.
Yeah,
right.
I mean Deuce is going to get some ownership. Hunter, Zeke, Rico, Singletary. Maybe that's even a little more than mild. So I like it. If there's no running backs, it'll be an interesting slate.
Yeah.
Let's get to the wide receiver position. Yeah, the more we keep talking about Wandale, man, he looks real, real good at 4.8K. Obviously, we have CeeDee Lamb. We have Neighbors. Neighbors CeeDee will be very popular, flex and captain, just complete alphas for their team. As you can see, 7.7 targets per game. That will be going up as the year goes. Neighbors, a whopping 12. I mean, Danny Dine just has laser eyes. The crypto people out there like to say, zoned in right on Neighbors 24/7. If not him, then it's Wandale as a short check down. Are you taking? I guess you can talk about the Lambs, Neighbors, Wandales of the world. I think you'll have a lot. Talk about those other pieces, though. Are you getting into the Turpins of the world? We have some production so far this year.
Yeah, I mean, I'm in on all these wide receivers over the running backs for sure, straight up. So, like, I will make sure I get exposure to these guys. We know the obvious ones. And I guess one thing to point out at this position, which I think definitely could impact things, is Darius Slayton is questionable.
He should be good, I think.
Yeah, it was something with his thumb. I'm guessing they wrap it up and he does play. But if for some reason he is inactive tonight on a short week, then you're going to be looking at guys like Hyatt for sure would get a bump. Bigger bump to Wandale.
The whole slate changes because the Hyatt right there, like forget Hunter, forget the Deuce Vaughns. The Hyatt.
It's all Hyatt. Yeah, exactly. So We'll see. I think he plays, everywhere around the industry thinks he plays. So, but it is Thursday night football, short week. It could be a surprise, hour and a half before kickoff. So it's definitely something to monitor, but going to assume he's in, and at 3,200, I'm fine with him. Just to note, but yeah, wide receivers, CD, Neighbors, we talked about them a lot. Wandale, it's a really good price tag on Wandale. And you look at, his activity in this offense, and the targets have been very solid for him. 12 week 1, 4, and then 8. He's been very steady as well. I mean, 11.8 fantasy points, 9.8 fantasy points, 13.8 fantasy points. No explosion game, but at 4,800, I can get like 13 from a $4,800 guy. That's probably, if I was going to bet on that, I'd say, yeah, that's probably on the optimal lineup tonight. If a 4.8K guy gets 13 fantasy points, that's good. It has a very good chance of being on optimal. And he's been basically right around there all season, 10, 11, 13 fantasy points. So he's a very, very strong option. We talked about Slayton, 32, fine with him. Again, prefer these guys over the running backs. On the Dallas side, CD, Cooks, I'm good with Tolbert at 58. I'll play some Turpin. And like the Turpin plays, Jalen Brooks sort of play, like those guys, better suited on Dak captain teams. Like if you're playing Dak and the captain, these are guys you definitely want to mix into your lineups a little bit. I mean, a cheap wide receiver, it's one play, and you need them on optimal if they catch a 40-yard touchdown or whatever it may be. So, I like all these wide receivers. I'll even mix in some Hyatt. If Dallas is kicking their ass and they go to 4 wide receivers, he's 600. If Slayton does play, but is still maybe a little bit banged up, maybe Hyatt gets a little bit more work. Who the hell knows? But like all these wide receivers to me are just so much better plays than the running backs. I'll be focused here. This is a situation where I will be actively getting these guys into my lineups. Yes, CeeDee Lamb's expensive at 11.8. Neighbors is expensive at 10.8. But after that, all the main pass catchers in this game are under 7K. And that represents really good value to me. So I'll be all over and have exposure to all the guys that I just mentioned.
Yeah, your wide receiver, I guess this is probably where I'm going to be a little more concentrated than you. Like, I'm not playing Hodgins. The Jalen Hyatt, if Darius Slayton's out, I probably will just X him. Again, 19% snap share. Sure, he can get there. He's a speedster, one catch, a Scantling type guy. And I'm not saying everyone should X him out. It's just I'm more open at the running back position. My captains are higher. So I think this is a position I have to consolidate. And I don't usually play 150. I might have 50 lineups or something today, which makes it go easier, or makes you, if you play less teams, you play tighter, however Tambo says it. So I'm not really going to be going Hyatt, now Hodgins. I'll play some Slayton. Wando's my favorite play receiver on the slate, though. I mean, that price tag allows you to do so much. If you want to drop down from a Rico to a Wandale, you want to drop down from a Singletary to a Wandale, that's the stuff, leave a lot of money on the table, and you can see them outscoring in a vacuum. I like some Cooks. The price tag's up there. Tolbert at 58 is like, The Turpin all the way at 4K, though. 20% of snaps. Brooks, 25%. I think I might just X those guys out down there and just, again, I'm playing some Rico, some Zeke, some Single, some Tracy, and just hope maybe the backup running backs outperform these way backup receivers. Again, not a strong lean, not a strong take. I'm spreading out more captain and stuff. I need to be concentrated. I'm just going to probably play Lamb, Cooksey, Neighbors, Robinson, and then I'll mix in some Tolbert, Slayton as wide receiver threes, but I don't even love that too much. Turpin break the slate. Hey, 7% slate breaker. You will absolutely love that. I do like your shout, Hoop. When playing those guys like the Turpins, the Brooks, and Dak captain teams makes so much more sense. Great take on that. And then you can still win a lot of money. You can triple up, quadruple up, all of that. Do you ship, though? I don't love it in the bigger or the flagship stuff. It'd be more smaller things. What are your thoughts? Like, if you know he got a zero hoop, is what he's saying.
Yeah, I mean, if you know he's getting zero, it's a automatic X out. Like, you're not playing. I get it, like roster construction, and you just like you might just need a cheap play, and sometimes, but like in Showdown, doesn't work like that. Like you're going to have somebody that does something, like whether it's one fantasy point or two. We've seen that before, but a zero, no. You X him out if you think he gets zero.
Yeah, but again, we don't like. He has a projection. He will be on the field a little bit. He's not guaranteed to get zero. It's just I wouldn't purposely take a zero, expecting a zero with that. So yeah, Hoop and I a little different at the receiver position. Let's get to the tight ends. I'll throw it to you right away on the tight ends. Pretty easy. I think you're going to be playing some Theo Johnson. He's been on the field a lot. Production has done nothing. But if you're on the field and the price is good, hey, I'll live. Jake Ferguson, obviously coming off the great game last week in his first game back. Great target for Dak. I like him more than Cooks, than Tolbert, than a lot of these guys. He's the second pass catcher. But Schoonmaker, Bellinger, that's the main stuff I'm wondering what you're doing at low ownership.
Yeah, it's a clear position. I agree with you. Like, Ferguson over all those other guys. Theo Johnson's on the field. You play him. I don't think I'm messing with Bellinger or Schoonmaker. Like, Ferguson got 12 targets last week. Like, they want him to be the pass catching tight end. Schoonmaker was productive when Ferguson was out. Ferguson's ass is back, and he's the alpha at the position for Dallas. So to me, it's Ferguson. I like him. I'm going to play him a lot. Theo Johnson, I think, is a fine play. 4 targets in week 1, 3 targets in week 3. Hasn't had a big game, hasn't really had a productive game, but just the opportunity of being on the field is very big in Showdown. He's going to be out there. So sign me up. I'm not messing with the cheap ones, though.
Yeah, I'm just with you. Same stuff as those bum wide receivers. If Bellinger or Schoonmaker beat me, they beat me. I like Ferg. Theo Johnson's one of those, like the ownership-wise. If 16's real, I don't know. It's fine. Maybe I'll get 10% or something. I'm not in love with that 16% number. Like, I think Slayton at 12% is a little more interesting. Tolbert's on the field a lot more, or Tolbert has more targets per game by a decent bit, 58. So I don't know how much I am in love with Theo, but he's definitely going to make the pool running routes for that price. Before we get kickers and D, take a 2-second timeout. Do us a favor. Hit that like button for us. Hit that subscribe button. Helps us out a ton bringing you shows on this channel almost every single day, whether it's baseball, basketball, football, MMA, NASCAR, you name it. We got it over here. As you can see, all these sports going on right now. And next thing you know, NBA, NHL will be back. Very excited for that. Playoff baseball. So much money to be made.
Yep. Agree.
Kickers, defenses. Don't even have to really ask you about any of these positions. I know you're playing the kickers, and I know whatever happens with the D is going to happen with the D. So
it's usually a boring conversation with Hoopster when it gets to kicker and defense. A lot of people, I will say, are bringing up the Aubrey name, and for all the right reasons. Like, he's been phenomenal. We're showing 18%.
Put a 2 in front of that.
Yeah, it's going to be higher than that. He's definitely in the 20s. Like, people know he's legit, and it's not just from last season where we knew he could get the job done. He's been phenomenal this year. And again, you don't need to look at game logs or box scores at every position, but for kickers, I personally think it matters. Like, it shows, is a team willing to kick field goals? Is he making the field goals? To me, yeah, I do want to see how they've been doing. And he hasn't missed a field goal all season. He is 10 for 10. He will kick deep ones, which is pretty big. And Dallas offense is good, and they get in scoring position. 21, 17, and 11. 11 came in a game they're getting their ass kicked. Like, they're getting their asses kicked by Baltimore. He still gets 11 fantasy points. It has a floor that is extremely high at a position that can be very, very volatile. So, he's a great play. We're showing the 19%. It's going to be, like you said, it's going to be in the 20s. I'd say mid-20s at a minimum. I'm fine with a little bit of Joseph as well at, what is he, 4,400. Yep. Totally fine with that. And then the defenses, Dallas is priced up a little bit, 5.4K. People will play them, I think, because Dallas is a 6-point favorite. If I get some, I get some. If I get some, Giants defense, I get some. I mean, again, it's always going to be a pretty boring talking point for me because I rarely make defenses a priority. I rarely make them a big part of what I do. I don't want my night to be ruined or influenced by a defense. If I get some, I get some. I'll be fine with it. And then obviously love the Aubrey play today, along with everyone else. I mean, people are definitely going to like him on the slate.
Yeah, that's for sure. Like this right here, I can see this being like 30% and this staying at like 15%. If Cowboys D 400 more, like this could be a pivot right here that I'm totally good with. Again, make sure your lineup makes sense, but it only takes one place for defenses. Another pivot, again, just because I think this will be like the 30%. Our flex optimal we have at 16%. So negative leverage, if the more people keep talking about Aubrey, the more it goes up. Maybe I'll just like Joseph a little more. Hopefully the other side, Joseph outscores them for cheaper. Leave that $600 right there, a way to get difference. Any time Turpin outscores Aubrey, man, that's a way. Leave 1,000 plus. That's a way to solo ship stuff like that. So again, I have no hot takes. Usually I play both kickers, both defenses as well. I just think right now Aubrey will get a lot of the steam. I'll probably hope Joseph outscores them. Maybe Dallas D as a pivot, but yeah, I mean, how do you argue with Aubrey, who Mike McCarthy's a donkey, as Nate says, one of the best kickers in the league, and you can get 5 points right away for a 50-yard field goal. So I think that's good on DraftKings. If you have anything you want to wrap up there, but any thoughts on FanDuel? We always do that. It's a way worse format for Showdown because you don't have to pay more salary for the MVP spot. There's only 5 spots, but hey, there's always money to be made. Prizes are still good. So what do you see?
Yeah, I'll try to point out some, I guess, pricing discrepancies. Daniel Jones at $13K, very cheap price tag for him. Starting quarterback, obviously, with rushing upside, and like the quarterbacks already have an advantage on FanDuel. Rushing touchdowns are valued more on FanDuel. So him at $13K definitely stands out as a solid price tag. Your boy Rico, I like much more on FanDuel. He's only $8K. Like that's a really cheap price tag. Rico at $8K. If he finds one on the ground, like he's probably in the optimal lineup. Aubrey at $9K. Kicker's a little less valuable on FanDuel. I'll definitely make sure to have a good chunk of him. Zeke, for some reason, is $11.5K. Like that's just a terrible price tag. And where I said Rico, if he finds it on the ground once, he's probably in optimal. Zeke would need to find it on the ground probably more than once or get some big yardage to be optimal at 11.5. So definitely hate the Zeke 11.5. And then all those cheap wide receivers, cheap running backs that we talked about are priced between like 5.5 and 7,500. So nothing really standing out in regards to those cheap plays.
Yeah, I don't have too much more to add. Like you said, the Rico price at 8K versus Zeke at 11.5. Rico looks great. If you want to fraction the ownership in large field tournaments, it's a Zeke day instead. You have a chance to win a lot more money yourself that way. A Tolbert, Justin Tolbert, I think Justin Herbert, Jalen Tolbert, so much. 8K right there. I think he will be pretty low owned. Wendell affordable at 10K. Kickers do there. I don't see too much either. I think the Rico Zeke stuff is the main takeaway there. Yeah. And then the Danny Dimes price too at 13.
Yeah, Wan'Dale Robinson, 4,800 on DK stands out as a really good value. He's up to like 10K on FanDuel. So definitely that's like reverse where, man, I'd love him on DK, but I don't necessarily love the 10K where, on FanDuel or on DK, if Wan'Dale gets 6 catches for 60 yards, that's great. But on FanDuel, that's not nearly enough. And he's kind of more expensive. So that's one that kind of works the opposite direction as well.
Yep, makes some sense. Jake, what's going on? Just see you getting in here. Jordan in here as well. What a fun show.
I think the standout plays from the chat today. The chat's been active, and we appreciate that. But it's CD
Aubrey for
Aubrey,
sure,
man. CD and Aubrey. People are loving CD, which rightfully so. And I agree. I think it just might be CD Lamb tonight. But CD and Aubrey are the chat plays today for sure.
Yeah, I agree with you. I didn't ask them the over-unders or that. I think they've been hot. I'll leave that for Tambo, though. But any final thoughts on this slate? Again, for me, running back room, I mean, when can you ever play 6 running backs pretty confidently? Confidently might not be the right word, but at price, roster construction, they'll be on the field. Receivers, you have options there, too, on both sides when you get a little deeper. I mean, pretty good, I think, showdown slate. What are your final thoughts?
Yeah, let's get week 4 started. Obviously, all our main slate stuff will also start to go up. The shows, the big show on Sunday. We got a special guest joining us Sunday morning with Tambo at the President's Cup. So very excited for week 4 to get started. And let's start out with a bang, getting those Ship It Nation logos at the top of the leaderboard.
Yeah, one of us, someone watching this show, has to join Big Marley and Rio for the big boy winners to start off the year. Hopefully it's one of you. Hopefully it's us. Hitting that like button on your way out, I think gives you a little bit more chance for that to be you. We appreciate everyone hanging out. Have a great weekend. Enjoy some football tonight. For my man Hoop, I'm Titletown. Peace. Be safe.